We are now going to be having 12 shiurim on 12 perakim. These are the 12 perakim of the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim, and I think it's very important before Pesach to get to know these 12 perakim. Now, there's stories and there's medrash and there's teachings from the Gemara that has been gotten around. To know the full story from beginning to end, what the Torah says, what we can learn from the actual psukim, and what actually happened as the Torah says it, I think is very, very important, and that's the purpose of this share. So let's dig in. Thank you very much for tuning in to Shir Gimel. This is Perakim. Umaisha, and Maisha Hayuraya, he was a shepherd as a sign of sheep of Yisrael Chaisnai Kain Midyan. Of Yisrael, his father-in-law, the Kain of Midyan. A few things here. Number one is Moshe Rabbeinu, who was an Ish Mitzri, who was a man of great importance, who grew up in Paro's household, now is a shepherd. Before we say that a shepherd is lowly, we know that Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov made their wealth by being shepherds. The brothers made their wealth by being shepherds, and when they came down to Mitzrayim, Yosef told them to tell Parai that they were shepherds, so that they could get the best of the land, Goshen, in the northeast part of Mitzrayim. Well, now Moshe Rabbeinu, the Ish Mitzri, was now a shepherd of his father-in-law's sheep. Now Yisrael Chaisnai, Yisrael, his father-in-law, Kain Midian, that's often put together, and the reason is because we were first introduced to him as Reuel. Now Reuel was probably the name that he had originally, but Yisrael was a name that he had after he was Moshe's father-in-law. Now, he was a priest of Midian, and it's very well that after this whole thing that happened in Mitzrayim, he no longer was the priest of Midian. But he was a priest of Midian at the time that Moshe Rabbeinu was shepherding his sheep, and Moshe Rabbeinu married his daughter. So, a couple things. One is, they calls him Yisrael Chaisnai Kain Midian to show that this same Yisrael, Moshe's father-in-law, he was a Kain of Midian. A couple things. This here, Yisrael, who was Moshe's father-in-law, was the Kain of Midian, was Reuel Kain Midian. So we could connect them. And the second part is that Yisrael was a Kain of Midian. He was not from Midian. He was not Avram's child. Avram had a second wife named Keturah, and Keturah had a son, Midian, and obviously he established the territory and city of Midian. So Moshe Rabbeinu now married into the family, but Yisro was not necessarily a Midianite. Yisro was actually a Cushi, as later on it says that Yocheved was a Cushi woman. So apparently they moved from Cush, which is in the heart of Africa, and they got to Midian. At that point, Yisro was the Kohen of Midian. V'yinag esatzayin, and he drove the sheep achar midbar out into the edge of the midbar. V'yavay el har elikim chareva, and he came to Har Elikim, Mount Chorev. Later on, it's called Har Sinai. Now it's called Har Chorev. And what's interesting is that it's probably Har Chorev because the word Chorev of choose. Hashem probably chose this mountain to be his mountain. And what's interesting is that where exactly was his mountain? Okay, if we look at a map, we see that Midian is over here, down here, and right here is Goshen. So Moshe Rabbeinu obviously left Mitzrayim, and he ran across, and he ended up, like we said, he settled in Midian. Now, Har Sinai has to be somewhere around here. It makes absolutely no sense for Moshe Rabbeinu to drive sheep out all the way down here where people claim Har Sinai is, because this is a very long distance to drive sheep. Also, it's not Achar Midbar. It's not the edge of the desert. Okay, it's actually middle of the desert. Desert is over here. So Har Sinai being over here is the middle of the desert. Moshe Rabbeinu did not drive sheep all the way down here. Har Sinai is probably located somewhere closer to here. Additionally, Har Sinai is where Midian is on the east side of the Gulf of Aqaba, because it says that Yisro heard about what happened and met Moshe Rabbeinu by Har Sinai. How would Yisro hear about what happened and met Moshe Rabbeinu by Har Sinai if they were wandering over here? Because he would not hear about it if they're wandering over here. If the Yam Suf split on the Gulf of Suez, which is on the west split of the Sea of Reeds, the Red Sea, and Yisrael would not travel all the way from Midian, going all the way across the desert to go meet them by Har Sinai. Instead, most likely, the Gulf of Aqaba, the east split of the Yam Suf, was where the Kriyas Yam Suf happened. Midian is right there. He heard about it, and he went to go meet Moshe Rabbeinu by the edge of the desert, somewhere where Har Sinai was. Let's get back to the psukim. Vayera Malach Hashem, and a Malach Hashem appeared, a love to Moshe Rabbeinu, Bilavash Eish, in the tongues of fire, Mitoich Hasneh, amongst a thorn bush. Vayera, and Moshe saw, V'hine, and behold, Hasneh, Bayer B'eish, the sneh is burning with fire, right? But the sneh is not being eaten. So this actually brings us back to the dreams that Paro had when Yosef was a prisoner. Because Paro dreamed about bushes, right? And he dreamed that they were some that were very fat and robust, and some that were very, very thin and wind-torn. And yet, what happened? The ones that were very, very wind-beaten and thin ate up the ones that were robust and did not even make a dent in them. They didn't get any bigger. Here, Moshe Rabbeinu is seeing a thorn bush, and he's seeing fire all around it, and yet the thorn bush still has its green, still has its flowers. It's not being consumed or burned whatsoever. It's both the robust thorn bush and also the thin bush at the same time, because it's robust in the fact that it's still green, but it's also thin in the fact that it's consumed by fire. And Moshe Rabbeinu sees this, and he turns aside. And Moshe Rabbeinu was someone who didn't take things obviously lightly, because anyone else saw the side and said, oh, wow, a bush is burning, wow, there's a fire, okay. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't turn to see that there was a fire. A fire in the desert means nothing, so let it just burn. What's it going to affect anyone? However, he was noticed that 1 second, it's burning, but the thorn bush is not being affected. So therefore, clearly, what's the lesson here? Clearly, the lesson is that even in amidst of a fire, something is able to survive. Amidst of all the oppression, the Jewish soul still survived in Mitzrayim. And Moshe Rabbeinu was starting to get the hint that even though his brothers were being subjugated and being oppressed in Mitzrayim, there was something left of them. They still were vibrant. They still were not being consumed. They still were a people that were not only able to be taken out, but should be taken out. Moshe said, Hasura Nava Era. He told his other shepherds or anyone else that was nearby, or he said, I'm going to now turn aside and I'm going to see what that is. As Hamara Hagadol Hazeh, it's a great sight. Madua lo yivaras now. Why is the sneh not burning? Why is it not being consumed by the fire? Vayer Hashem kisar lerois, and Hashem saw that Moshe Rabbeinu turned to see. Vayikra Elav, and he called it Elav Elikim, and Elikim called him Mitoich Hasneh, from within the thorn bush. Vayomer Moshe Moshe Vayomer Hineni. He says Moshe Moshe, and Moshe Rabbeinu said Hineni, just like Avram Hineni. So too Moshe Moshe Vayomer Hineni. What's interesting is that it says Vayikra Elav Elikim Mitoich Hasneh, not from Mitoich Ha'esh. Hashem did not call from within the fire. The fire was the Malach Hashem. The Malach Hashem is what appeared to Moshe Rabbeinu. Hashem actually called within the sneh. So what's the lesson here? The Malach represented the visual disturbance of fire. Something that's obviously very severe, very hot, very, very destructive, consuming. However, Hashem was calling from within the robust and vibrant and alive thorn bush, to show that Hashem was amongst the people. Hashem was not amongst the mitzrayim who were subjugating the people. Hashem was amongst the people who were represented by this bush who were not being consumed. That's where Hashem called from. Vayomer, Hashem said, Al tikrav Elohim, do not come closer. Shal nolcha me'al raglecha, remove your sandals from your feet. Ki hamokom asher ata oimed, because the place that you are standing, alav, on Admas Koideshu, it is holy ground. Hashem made the top of our Sinai holy ground. Vayomer, and Hashem said, Anoichi, I am. Now, when we look at the word Anoichi, for the most part, if you read the entire Chumash, whenever it says Anoichi, it means Hashem. Anoichi Hashem Aleikecha. When it says by the Seres Dibros, Anoichi is Hashem Aleikecha. So, Hashem uses the word Anoichi when referring to him as the creator of the entire world. Vayomer, Anoichi, I am Hashem Elekecha, Elekei Avicha, the God of your fathers. The God of your father, who is Amram, literally God of your father, and also Lekei, Avram, Lekei, Yitzchak, Lekei, Yaakov, and also the God of your forefathers. Vayaster Moshe Panav, and Moshe had to turn his face, Kiyare, because he feared, Mehabit es Elikim, to gaze upon God. Vayomer Hashem, and Hashem said. Now, it's interesting, because before it said, Vayikra Elav Elikim, that Elikim called to him, but now it's Vayomer Hashem. Now Hashem is talking to him. So the attribute of Elikim was called him, but now that Moshe Rabbeinu came and took off his sandals and turned aside in humility, now Hashem is speaking to him. Ra'oi, Ra'isi, es ani ami, I surely have seen the affliction of my nation, of my people, Asher b'Mitzrayim, that are in Mitzrayim, V'yesa akosam, and their oppression, Shamati, and their V'yesa akosam, and their cries, Shamati, I've heard, Mifnei noikshav, because of the taskmasters, Ki yadati es ma'achav, and I know of their burdens, and their labors, and their hard labors. Hashem knows. Moshe Rabbeinu did not have to go and complain. Moshe Rabbeinu's M.O. throughout the entire Chumash is always complaining to Hashem, not a complaint as in a consumer complaint, chas v'shalom, obviously. It's more like bringing information to Hashem. Hashem was right away, was now appearing to Moshe. Moshe couldn't speak. Moshe couldn't even look. And Hashem is saying, I am Hashem. I'm the God of your forefathers. I know what's going on with my people. The A-raid, then I came down. Latziloi, to save them, the Yad Mitzrayim, for the hand of Mitzrayim. Ula'alois min ha'aretz, and to bring them up to the land, from the land. Hahi, from this land. Min ha'aretz, hahi, from this land. El eretz toivor chava, to a land that's good and wonderful. As el eretz zavachal dvash, flowing with milk and honey. El makoim, the place, Hakanani of the Canaan, Vachiti, Vamori, Aprizi, Vachiva, Husi. What's interesting, it says, La'alois min ha'aretz hahi, to bring off from this land. What this land is? Does Hashem mean Mitzrayim? I see that they're being afflicted by Mitzrayim in Mitzrayim to bring off this land, or Eretz Ahi, this land. Hashem was referring to Har Sinai. Hashem was saying, I am going to bring them to Har Sinai, and then we're going to go up from Har Sinai, and I'm going to bring them to the land. In other words, Har Sinai was the first stop. And we can see that a little bit more explicit in the pasuk coming later on. So I'm bringing them to this land, go up to Eretz, that's good. And what land is that? The land that I promised Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, the land of Canaanim, Aprizim, especially, etc. Diato, and now Hine, behold, Tzakaz b'nei Yisrael ba'elai, they came to me. What's one second going on? Hine means something, a surprise. But Hashem already said that he heard the cries of b'nei Yisrael. What does it mean that he heard the cries? So apparently, at that time, Hashem has heard the cries all the time, all the groaning, and Hashem knew exactly what's going to happen all the time. However, now that when Perek Beis ended off and they renewed their cries to Hashem because the Melech of Mitzrayim died, that's what Hashem was talking about here. There are new cries of hope for salvation. That's what came up to Hashem. The Gamer Isi Yatzalachatz, and I also have seen their pressure. Asher Mitzrayim, the Mitzrayim are pressuring them. How's the Mitzrayim pressuring them? Because not only are they pressuring them with burdens, now assimilation is a problem. The Mitzrayim were pressuring them to assimilate. And if they would assimilate, that would be the end of Bnei Yisrael. So Hashem saw now's the time before, when they're being pressured to assimilate, before that happens, now's time to take them out. V'yato, therefore, and now, l'cha, you have to go, the esh l'chacha el Parai, and I will send you to Parai. In other words, what's Hashem saying? Go, you go. Go where? Go to Mitzrayim. Then Hashem will send you to Parai. V'hoitzi es ami, and you will take out my nation, Bnei Yisrael, Mitzrayim. You will take out my nation, my people, Bnei Yisrael, from Mitzrayim. So therefore, the first thing is Zerizis, go. It's time ready to go. And then I will send you to Parai. In other words, right now you're going to go, and I will then make you the messenger to Parai. So what's the difference? Why doesn't he just say, I'm going to send you to Parai? Because it has to be that Moshe Rabbeinu is ready on the way when Hashem makes him the messenger. And we see that later on, actually, that on the way back to Mitzrayim from Midian, when Hashem talks to Moshe Rabbeinu and gives him the final instructions, that's when he's fully the shliach of Hashem. Until then, he was tasked with further instruction. Right now, he's told to go. But Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't go right away. Moshe says, Elikim, Mi Eloichi, who am I? Ki elech el Parai, that I will go to Parai. Ki oitzi as Bnei Yisrael Mitzrayim, and I'm going to take Bnei Yisrael out of Mitzrayim. Who am I to do it? In other words, in a way, it's hypocrisy. Because I grew up in Parai's house. How can I then go to Parai and ask him to take everyone out of Mitzrayim? When I grew up in it, don't I owe him a Karshatayv? Or another thing he's thinking about is, Parai wants to kill me. I can't go to Parai. Parai already has a death sentence on my head because I survived as a child despite his decree. So how can I go to Parai to take out Bnei Yisrael? Vayomer, ki echya imach, I will be with you, Hashem says. Zeh lecha ois, and let me give you a sign. Ki anoichi, because I shalachticha, that I will send you. That's giving you the sign. And that I sent you, and therefore I will be with you. When you take the nation out of Mitzrayim, to Avdon Elikim, serve God, ala harazet, on this mountain. You're going to take them back with you out of Mitzrayim and come to this mountain. That's what we talked about just before, about Min Hamakim, from this place going to first Har Sinai and then go up to Eretz Canaan, Eretz Yisrael. Exactly. You're coming first here. The plan was always that Moshe Rabbeinu was going to take Bnei Israel out and bring them to Har Sinai to get Hashem Torah. And specifically, it had to be outside of Eretz Canaan, because when they enter Eretz Canaan, they have to be ready. They have to be fully ready to live like Hashem wanted them to. They couldn't get Torah inside of Eretz Yisrael, because then they would think that Torah is connected only to Eretz Yisrael. And if they ever had geulas, they no longer had to keep Torah. Giving the Torah in the desert showed that the Torah is everywhere. You live in Eretz Yisrael with the Torah, ready and prepared to go into Eretz Yisrael with the Torah and live according to the Torah. But the Torah exists outside of Eretz Yisrael and exists everywhere. Vayomer Moshe Elikim, and Hashem said to God, Hine anoichi ba as Bnei Yisrael, behold, I will come to Bnei Yisrael, v'yamarti lehem, and say to them, Elikei avosechem, shalchani eschem elechem, that the God of your fathers sent me. V'yamruli, they'll say to me, Ma shemai, what's his name? Ma omer alehem, what should I tell them? What type of question is this? What's his name? That's what they care about? Get Jews, Bnei Israel, you're about to go free after centuries of bondage. And what's your first question? What's his name? So it's in a way, it's an obvious question also, because the first thing they probably want to do is have gratitude. Say, oh, Baruch who? Who should I say Baruch? Baruch Hashem? Baruch who? What is Hashem's name? We also have to say something, and this may sound out there, but you have to understand the way the Torah is written. It was written for the people as they were there in Mitzrayim. In Mitzrayim, the people believed 100% that there was a God, but they also believed that there were many, many gods. So they weren't polytheist. They didn't believe in all the gods. However, they believed in one, but one of many. In other words, they believed that they had their God of their forefathers, which is why the Torah keeps saying, I'm not Elikim who made the world. I'm not the Elikim who did Ma'aseh Bereishis. I'm not the Elikim who's the only one and only. That doesn't really happen until Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Until Moshe Rabbeinu teaches them Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. That's the first time they understand that not only is Hashem theirs, but he's the only such one. We can read this in Aseret Dibros also. The whole couple of the second Aseret Dibros is all about don't have any other gods before you. In other words, I can acknowledge the existence that you may think that there are other deities out there, but you cannot have any of them. You'll have to wash yourself from them, and you're going to have to only have Hashem. And eventually they went in steps. So in the steps from seeing a polytheist society in Mitzrayim, to understanding that their God is taking them out, and they went through all the makkahs and all the miracles, all the wonders. Then they went to Har Sinai, where their God did the miracles for them and gave them His Torah. And then they understood that eventually, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad Ein Oid Milvadoi, that was their final understanding. Finally, before they went to Israel, they understood Ein Oid Milvadoi. But at this point, in mitzrayim, they didn't have the concept of Ein Oid Milvadoi. So therefore, they wanted to know, what's the name of our God who we have to think? Also, they want to know, what name did Hashem appear to you in? Because depending on how Hashem appeared, it makes a difference. For instance, they may know that Hashem appeared as Kel Shakai to the Avos. And Kel Shakai means you are going to get this land. Hashem also appeared as the name Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei, to the Avos, which means Hashem will guard them and protect them and be with them. So I want to know, how is Hashem going to be with us? So God said to Moshe, you have to understand the nuances. When it says V'yamar Hashem and V'yamar Elokim, obviously it all means Hashem. But you have to understand that at this point, what it's talking about is how Hashem is being perceived to them, to Moshe and by Moshe. Hashem meaning the one who relates to man. Whenever it's Yud Kei Vav Kei, it's how Hashem relates to man. And Elokim is how Hashem relates to creation. So that's why the first parak of Bereshis only has Elokim, because it was Hashem and Bereshis. When Adam was put onto this world, that's when Hashem said. That's when the Torah says Hashem Yud Kei Vav Kei. So V'yamar Elokim Moshe. So the Creator really said to Moshe, Eche Asher Eche, I will be what I will be. But Omer and say, Koi Soimar L'Bnei Yisrael, say like this to Bnei Yisrael, Eche Shalachani Aleichem. Eche sent me. I will be for them. In other words, what does that mean? It means that right now they've obviously cried out to Hashem, which is why Hashem heard theirs. And now Hashem will be theirs. And Hashem will be theirs. Asher Eket will surely be theirs. Hashem is going to always protect Klal Yisrael. It's a promise from this time when Hashem spoke to Moshe Rabbeinu at the snap on Har Chorev on Har Sinai, that Hashem will be with them forever. I will be what I'll be. I will be here in Mitzrayim, and I will be with you in the Midbar. I'll be in Eretz Canaan. I will always be with you. It's assured that the people could always know there's a continuation, a continuum, that Hashem will always be with them and never drop them as a nation. And Hashem said further al Moshe, Hashem continued to talk to Moshe, and he said further instruction, Koi soymar b'nei Yisrael. So you should say to b'nei Yisrael, Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei, Elokei Yisrael, the God of your forefathers, Elokei Avram, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov, Sholachani Aleichem. Tell them also not only Eke Asher Eke, tell them that Hashem, Elokei Aviseichem, Elokei Avram, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov, also sent me. Both sent me. Not only Hashem will be with us for always, but Hashem that was protected. The Avos, through everything, will also now do wonders and protect them as well. Zeh Shemi La'olam, Yud Kei Vav Kei, this is my name forever. Zeh Zichri L'dar V'dar, and this is how Hashem mentioned from dar to dar, and that is how Hashem mentioned. Baruch Atah Hashem, it's always Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei. Lech V'asta Aziknei Yisrael, go, and you're going to gather the elders of Yisrael. V'yamarta Aleihem, and say to them, Hashem Elokei Aviseichem, Hashem, the God of your forefathers, Nirei Lai appeared to me, Elokei Avram Elokei Yaakov, Lamar saying, Pokoi Pekadati Eschem, I've surely noticed, I've surely considered, I've surely chose the Asu Lachem Mitzrayim, and everything, and I've noticed every little intricacy, every little detail that happened to you in Mitzrayim. So notice how the first pasuk says, tell B'nai Yisrael when they ask, meaning not the people at large, one thing, but first you're going to gather the Ziknei of Yisrael, and you're going to tell them this as well. And then they're also going to help relay the message to the people. I'll bring you up, Eschem Me'ani Mitzrayim, from your burdens in Mitzrayim, El Eretz Kanani, Vachiti, Vamoy, Vaprizi, Vachi, Vavusi, El Eretz Zavachol Dvash. Again, same promise. Tell them also, I'm going to bring them up from Mitzrayim, I'm going to bring them to that promised land. You don't have to tell them the destination is Har Sinai. You will know the destination is Har Sinai. You just tell them, we are leaving Mitzrayim, we are going to the land that I promised the Avos. V'shamu l'kalecha, and they will listen to your voice. Uvasa, and you will go ata you v'ziknei Yisrael, the elders Yisrael, al melech Mitzrayim, to the king of Mitzrayim. Notice how it says melech Mitzrayim. It doesn't say paroi, because the first one to subjugate them and put them in bondage and tax them and started this whole thing was melech Mitzrayim. So therefore, since they're under the local nomarch's jurisdiction, the first one you have to go plead to is melech Mitzrayim. Go to him. So you take the elders and you go to melech Mitzrayim. V'yamarta love, and you will say to him, Hashem, Elikei Ivrim, Hashem, the God of Ivrim, Nikra Aleinu, that happened upon us. V'yata, now, Nelcha, na, please let us go. Derech Shloshes Yamim, by Midbar, 3 days into the Midbar. V'nizvcha, L'Hashem Elikeinu, and we will sacrifice offerings to our God. And I know, he will not give to you Melech Mitzrayim Mahalach to go. He won't give you permission. He's not going to give you permission to go. And not even with a strong hand. So we know that Hashem took us out with the Yad Chazaka Zoyin Toya. But Hashem's saying, Melech Mitzrayim is garnished. He's not going to be able to do anything for you. Even with the Yad Chazaka, he's not going to be able to give you permission. Because he's going to defer to Parai. Yes, Yadi, and then I'm going to send my hand, the Casey as Mitzrayim, and now I'm going to strike the Mitzrayim, the Chol Niflais, with all wonders, Asher Esa Bikirbai, that is all within your midst, and after he will send you out. So we have to pay attention to what's exactly going on. The plead was to the Melech Mitzrayim, who could not give the permission because he had to go to Parai. Then Hashem will strike Mitzrayim, which means additional Mitzrayim. Now, every Yamaka, except for Dever, occurred in the entire Eretz Mitzrayim, which Hashem did. But as far as vis-a-vis the Bnei Yisrael is concerned, to their perspective, this is what's happening. They are now looking around in Goshen, in the district of Mitzrayim, and they're seeing that Mitzrayim is being struck. What's happening the rest of Mitzrayim was Hashem's doing. It's not really for the benefit of Bnei Yisrael. For the benefit of Bnei Yisrael was they saw what was going on in their shchuna. And in their shchuna, they saw the makis. And after that, they knew that they would be sent out. And if you look, and when we do Perik Yud Beis, we're going to see who really sent Bnei Yisrael out. The nobles of nobles, including all the nomarchs, came and started yelling to Bnei Yisrael, go, go, go. It wasn't necessarily Para. It was all the nobles who had enough and said, forget about it, go. So you'll see that it was the Melech Mitzrayim that finally let them out after Parai was struck with Yod Chazaka and all these makis. V'nasati yeschein ha'am hazeh, and I'm going to give chein to this nation be'eni Mitzrayim, in the eyes of Mitzrayim. V'haya kein telchu loy telchu rekam, and they will also go, but they will not go empty-handed. No, they're going to leave Mitzrayim not empty-handed. Sure, you had your own possessions, you have your animals, and you have your houses, and you had your fields, but what type of wealth do you have? They had no coin wealth, no gold, silver, materials, that type of thing. They're not going to go empty-handed from those things. V'sha'ala isha mishkenta umigras besa. What's going to happen is every woman is going to ask from her neighbor and from those who reside in her house. In other words, Mitzrayim had taskmasters or other people who were forced to live in the houses of the Bnei Yisrael. That's why Bnei Yisrael later had to put the marking on their house. Why did they say, listen, Bnei Yisrael is isolated in Goshen, so why do they have to put the blood on the door for Hashem to skip over their houses? The answer is, yes, it was for Bnei Yisrael, we'll talk about it in perakim. However, it was also because Taka, there were Mitzrayim living in their houses. Mitzrayim were living, they were neighbors, they're living in their houses. At this point, a lot of Mitzrayim moved into Goshen because they had to make sure that the Bnei Yisrael was completely subjugated and oppressed and trying to be assimilated, like we talked about. There was part of the assimilation plan. Have the Mitzrayim move in to Goshen and have them try to assimilate. So the Mitzrayim among them. So they're going to ask for the neighbors and the people who live in their house. Clay, kesef, or clay zav, items of gold and items of silver, usmalos, and also clothing, v'samtem es b'neichem es b'neisechem, and you'll put them on your children and your daughters, your boys, sons and your daughters, v'nitzaltem es Mitzrayim, and you're going to empty out Mitzrayim. And these are things that actually happen, like we know, right after Makas Chayshech, we know that before Moshe Rabbeinu told them before Makas B'chayres that before that, please go around to go collect stuff from your neighbors and the people who are around you from the mitzrayim, and they did that, and they had Motzachain, and they had Chaim, like we talk about in Perek Beis. This is a foreshadowing, this is a prophecy, and this is how Perek Gimel ends.